person. All of this is just to discuss a little bit something similar to what we saw in the Sudama, Brahman, and Krishna story, where like if you're a householder or if you're just living in this world, whatever your ashram is, how do you relate to stuff? How do you relate to the material manifestation and opulence and things? We're navigating our way through this world. So the teaching, this is a painting of Rupa Goswami. He composed this verse to explain the proper standard for being involved in the world, but not attached to the world. And that's this Anasaktasya verse. All this is background to help us get into the life of Gopal Bhatta. So, Anasaktasya Vishaya. Vishaya means sense enjoyment. From Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam. Vishaya means sense enjoyment, sense gratification, sense indulgence. Vishaya. And so the verse is saying without being attached, asakti means attached. And anasaktasi means without being attached to Vishaya, one accepts things, but without the mood of sense enjoyment. And Krishna Sambandha, those things that are in relation with Krishna Sambandha, they're to be used in service to Krishna. And what Vairagya is. So householders and a sannyasi have different duties, but a householder's duty or a sannyasi's duty, whatever it is that you accept, it should be dedicated to Krishna service. And that's the proper standard of detachment, whatever your ashram is. Now, Gopal Bhatta, for his whole life, he didn't become married. He was a brahmachari and then accepted the renounced order of life. The phrase that the Prabhupada has translated this as anasaktasya vishayan, rightly situated above possessiveness. And that's Gopal Bhatta. It's all of the Goswamis, and it's a qualified grahasta giving these teachings. So that's part of their writings. This is a little, a very old drawing of Gopal Bhatta sitting under a tree, composing literature. And he was deeply devoted to Radharani. You're the queen of the heart of Govinda. Please engage me in your service. There are different ways to translate the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. There's different ways to translate anything that's from Sanskrit into another language, English or any other language. Prabhupada gave us a very simple, there's some poetic and very, very detailed, very beautiful, esoteric translations, but the one that Prabhupada gave us is very similar to this. Hare Krishna. Hare is the vocative of Hara. Hara means the potency of Hari. Hara. So in the vocative of Hara is Hare. So Hare, oh energy of Krishna, oh Srimati Radharani, please engage me in the service of Krishna. So that's what he's saying here. This is Gopal Bhatta's writing. Oh Shri Radhe, you are the queen of the heart of Govinda, please engage me in your service. Or please engage me in Krishna's service. Now, each of the associates of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, let's go back. I'll go back. Caitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani. In Krishna Loka, Krishna has a brother, an elder brother, and his name is Balaram. Krishna Balaram. In our temple in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram, the central altar, Krishna Balaram. So when Krishna appears as Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Balaram appears as his brother. And his brother's name is Nityananda Ram. And so forth. When Krishna descends, he brings with him all of his associates. And when Krishna descends as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he brings with him all of his associates. And they have their counterparts in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So each of the 6 Goswamis, for example, they're in Madhurya Ras in relation to Krishna and Krishna Loka. Madhurya Ras means a conjugal relation, like Radha to Krishna, or the gopis unto Krishna, or the queens unto Krishna, like that. Conjugal relation. So the position of Gopal Bhatta is Ananga Manjari, or Guna Manjari. Ananga Manjari is Radharani's younger sister. Did you know that Radharani had a younger sister? Radharani had a younger sister. Radharani had an older brother and a younger sister. Ananga Manjari was Radharani's younger sister. So how intimate is Gopal Bhatta? And the bhava expansion of another Manjari who is assistant to Radha is Guna Manjari. Here's a painting that a teenager, ISKCON youth, kids that sit in class and all class long, they're making drawings. So this girl, Vrinda, that's what she did. She became really gifted at writing and drawing. So she made this drawing of Guna Manjari. And if you look closely, you'll see in the hand of Guna Manjari, there's a deity. The deity is the deity of Gopal Bhatta. The deity is Radha Raman. Those of you that have been to Vrindavan, most likely you've been to the Radha Raman temple. It's an amazing place. Spiritually amazing. It's, architecturally it's not amazing, but spiritually it's amazing. And we'll hear something about the deity. So this is Vrinda's painting of Guna Manjari holding Radha Raman in her hand. And it's depicting a painting written by a disciple, one of the leading disciples of Gopal Bhatta, writing a poem about him, addressing his guru as Guna Manjari. A little esoteric, but oh, Guna Manjari, the embodiment of divine love, please listen to my prayer. As I ponder upon your countless qualities, my mind simply becomes enchanted by you. Seeing me as a distressed soul, please constantly bestow your mercy upon me. Now, this is a poem written by his disciple to his guru. Srinivasacharya is the disciple who became an acharya. Due to your magnanimous nature, please fulfill my desire. Besides you, who, like the water-laden cloud of the monsoon, will quench my thirst? You are undoubtedly the hope for the hopeless. In my heart, I'm completely convinced about that. I beg you to kindly look upon me with your tender eyes shining with sympathy. Now, Srinivasacharya, along with 2 others in the next generation behind the 6 Goswamis, there weren't printing presses at that time. They took I'm doing like this, a bullock cart loaded with handwritten copies of the writings of the Goswamis, and went traveling throughout the land, throughout India, to distribute handwritten copies. Copies were made of those copies and so forth. And that was the method of passing on traditional knowledge. They taught it, but they had the text that scribes could make copies of. And this way they made the literatures of the Goswamis available throughout the land. Srinivasacharya is one of the primary persons that did that. Very powerful person. Very elevated person spiritually. So Srinivas was a disciple of Gopal. Now we're going to go to the childhood of Gopal. Gopal was the son of the chief priest of Sri Rangam. In Sri Rangam, here's the main deity, Sri Ranganath. And in the front is the Utsav deity and Sri Ambu on either side. And the back side, it's Vishnu reclining on Anantashesh. So his father was Venkata Bhatta. Venkata Bhatta was the chief priest in Sri Rangam. During some period of time, Mahaprabhu made a tour of traveling in various holy places in South India. He was residing in Puri. He traveled for 2 years through South India. There's details of where he went and what happened. And one of those places he went was Sri Rangam. And when he reached Sri Rangam and he saw the deity of Ranganath, he did what was natural for him. He was calling loudly the holy name of the Lord, and he started dancing in ecstatic love. And just at that time, the chief priest came, and he saw this remarkable display of ecstasy, of calling the Lord's holy name and dancing in ecstasy. And he requested Mahaprabhu, please come and take a meal at my home. So the invitation was accepted. And then Venkata Bhatta said, it's the beginning of the rainy season. I'd like to extend the invitation that you stay in my home for the 4 months of the rainy season, then you can continue your travel. And so Mahaprabhu accepted. And when this happened, Venkata Bhatta had a son named Gopal Bhatta. And Gopal at this time was around 7 to 10 years. It's not clear exactly how old he was. And when they received him, they washed the sannyasi's feet. And he took the foot bath, that Gopal took the foot bath. And as he was taking the foot bath, his body started to erupt in ecstasy. And for the whole 4 months, because he's a little boy, and a Brahmin and very well put together young boy, he had the opportunity of rendering service. He brought his meals and arranged for his clothes to be washed and gave to whoever he gave it to, was somebody. And he was a companion of Mahaprabhu for 4 months. One of the services that he did from time to time, Mahaprabhu would dance and dance and dance. So he would massage his legs, his lower legs. And when he was massaging his lower legs one time, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I'm going to go to this next one. He said to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you are an eternal associate of Radha in Vrindavan. The boy said, that's what Mahaprabhu said to the boy. And Gopal said, you, my lord, are the son of Nanda Maharaj, who has assumed the form of a mendicant sannyasi. Very elevated exchange. There's a part that I missed. I think you'll appreciate this. Because Venkata Bhatta was a learned person, not just a pujari. He and Mahaprabhu would have discussions regularly in the evenings. At the end of the day, they'd sit together and discuss spiritual topics. This detail is described in his biography. Lord Chaitanya asked Venkata Bhatta, it is known that Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is the most chaste. So why is it that she left the lotus feet of Narayana and went to try to engage in the rasa dance with Krishna? She's the most chaste. And Venkatabhata said, there's no difficulty because Krishna and Narayana, they're the same. So Mahaprabhu said, very well, Krishna and Narayana are the same. But when she went to engage in the rasa dance, she couldn't enter. According to scripture, for 100 years, the goddess of fortune underwent austerities, and still after that, she couldn't enter the rasa dance. How come? Why does the goddess of, if they're non-different, why does she have to do austerities? And even with, she's the goddess of fortune. Why does she have to do austerities? And number 3 is she couldn't enter. So why is that? And Venkatabhata said, I don't know, but I think you know. And the explanation goes like this. Because the goddess of fortune is thinking of herself as the goddess of fortune. Her Lord is the Aishvarya, shelter of all opulences, and she's the goddess of fortune of that Lord. And that's not the mood in Vrindavan. The mood in Vrindavan is the Aishvarya personality Krishna eclipses his Aishvarya with sweetness. And only one who has gained that sweetness is enabled to enter into the pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan, what to speak of rasa dance. Even the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune doesn't have a role to play in rasa dance, although Narayana and Krishna are the same. And then Lord Chaitanya kind of whitewashed the whole thing and said, but anyway, they're the same, and so it's okay. It's a detail that's nice to know. It's nice to know that Mahaprabhu was very respectful, and what to speak of Venkatabhata being respectful to Mahaprabhu. They had deep affection for one another. But there, at the same time, where there's respect, there is a distinction. The distinction was being made in this very sweet way. So over here again is Gopal as a little boy, in the course of 4 months of directly serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to understand his divinity. Mahaprabhu revealed to Gopal, you are an eternal associate of Radha in Vrindavan. Now, that's his eternal position. And then he has this worldly position of being the son of the chief priest of Sri Rangam. That very night when they had this exchange, Gopal had a dream. And in his dream, when in the dream, he saw Lord Chaitanya, and then Lord Chaitanya disappeared and Radha and Krishna showed themselves. And then Radha and Krishna disappeared and Lord Chaitanya showed himself. And in his dream, Lord Chaitanya embraced Gopal. It was confirming what he had understood about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya being non-different. Now, it's just a well-known event. Some 5 years ago or so, we had a group visiting the path that Lord Chaitanya followed in South India. And one of the places we went was Sri Rangam. And I forget the number 11 or something like that in generations descending from Venkatabhata was Parashara Bhatta. So we went to the home of Venkatabhata, and Parashara Bhatta was just so kind, took us around and showed us everything. We went inside the house. You could feel the vibration. It was different. And I asked him, where did Lord Chaitanya stay in this house? And he went like this with his hand. He said he had the whole place. it's just, the walls of homes in South India, there's 3 foot thick stone. And it was, although it was hot outside, it was cool inside. But there wasn't clutter, there wasn't stuff around. There's only one place. There was a table with a zillion deities on the table. Apparently they did some, in addition to serving in the temple, they did some worship in their home. And then he said to us, did you know that Lord Chaitanya carved Jagannath deities while he was here? I said, no. He said he wasn't idle. He was here for 4 months. So let me show you. So he took us across the street, up the street, not too far, 100 yards or something like that. And there's a little temple with deities that were Jagannath deity, because Mahaprabhu was in Puri. And he had some affection for Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So he hand-carved deities that he personally worshipped daily. Little simple place, but hand-carved by Mahaprabhu. Prashar Bhatt was so nice. I mean, I just have been speaking about and thinking about he had affection for Lord Chaitanya, like I wish I had. It's very profound. It's palpable. Anyway, when it was time at the end of the rainy season, Mahaprabhu left. The father, Venkata Bhatta, fainted. And little Gopal, he wanted to go with him. Naturally, I want to go with you. So Mahaprabhu gave him the following instructions. For now, stay here and serve your father and mother. After they have departed this world, you may go to Vrindavan and join Rupa and Sanatan, the 2 of the 6 that were in the center. Always engage yourself in hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna. Pretty simple. And he left. Now, Venkata Bhatta was the father. Venkata Bhatta had a brother who was a sannyasi. He never became married. And his name was Prabodhananda Saraswati. And Prabodhananda Saraswati gave Diksha to Gopal because the father doesn't give Diksha to the son. The uncle gave Diksha, and he gave detailed teachings. And Gopal remained with his father and mother for around 22 more years. So you had 22 to 10. He was 32 when he went, approximately, when he went to Vrindavan. So when his parents left this world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still in Puri. And if you think of your geography, where's Sri Rangam? There's Puri, and way over there is Vrindavan. Of course, you go Puri, Sri Rangam, Puri, and way over there is Vrindavan. He didn't go to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. Why? He had a great attachment for him. Why didn't he go see him? Because he told him something else. Take shelter, Rupa and Sanatan. So that's what he did. I find that astonishing. His life was dedicated to Lord Chaitanya. So while he was a young boy for those 22 years, 2 things. His father was chief priest. So he began compiling a manual on deity worship that incorporated the procedures and the scriptural teachings of the Sampradaya in which he was born, the Sri Sampradaya, but also knowing Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and with the assistance of his uncle, other things and other things and other things. So he compiled a book on not just deity worship, but Vaishnava etiquette and so many other things. It's basically a how-to manual, how to live your life as a Vaishnava, how to observe Ekadasi, how to observe Janmashtami, what are the mantras for this practice, how to take sannyas, it's a how-to manual. And with the guidance of Prabodhananda Saraswati, his uncle, he began studying very, very, very assiduously Srimad Bhagavatam, because that was the scripture that Mahaprabhu gave special deference to or importance to. So because they didn't have computers, he just took notes, and his notes were based on the topics of the Bhagavatam. And some people must take really good notes. He was one of those, and he took his notes and made a manuscript. And when he went to Vrindavan, he gave both manuscripts to somebody else to assemble. The Bhagavatam manuscript went to Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is one of the 6. And, brilliant scholar. So he said, I want you to take this, put it into publishable form on one condition. Don't mention my name. Because that was his quality. He wanted anonymity. He wanted to be in the background, serving the Vaishnavas. Now, some of the Vaishnavas, they want to be in the foreground. He liked being in the background, serving, supporting, giving honor to other Vaishnavas, but not to himself. That's Gopal Bhatta's nature. So that writing that he gave to Jiva Goswami became his chief work, called the 6 Sandarbhas, Sat Sandarbhas, and in different topics. Anyway, I can give you an overview of what the Sandarbhas is. It's an amazing literature. To give you an idea, so that I know of, there are 4 PhD theses that have been done from Oxford University on 3 or 4 verses from one of the Sandarbhas. It's very profound, very deep, very rich, very, very comprehensive. And the ghostwriter, so to speak, is Gopal Bhatta. Very deep person. That's on the teachings of the Bhagavatam and the divisions of the teachings of the Bhagavatam in different categories. And then this how-to manual, he was the author of that. And he gave that to Sanatana Goswami, another one of the 6 Goswamis. Please put it in a publishable form on one condition. Don't mention my name. But that's the way he liked to be. In Sri Rangam, here's a painting on the wall in the side, I think it's in the Jagannath temple, that shows Caitanya Mahaprabhu giving classes when he visited. And in the audience, there's little Gopal in the front. So he lived for around 30 years in Sri Rangam, another 45 years in Sri Vrindavan. When he reached Vrindavan, he made a beeline for Rupa and Sanatan, because that's what he was told. They were so happy. They gave him a place to stay that was quiet, because that was his nature. Near one of the Rasa Sthali places in Vrindavan, one of the places where Radha and Krishna perform rasa dance, and is quiet and secluded. And then they sent a letter through a messenger to Caitanya Mahaprabhu saying, Gopal arrived. He's with us. We're so happy. Yeah. So Mahaprabhu wrote back a letter, and he sent some paraphernalia to his to now he's 30 years old. But he hadn't seen him for 22 years. But he's very happy he finally made it. Now, by this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was towards the end of his life. his stay on earth, because he took sannyas when he was 24, and he stayed on earth until he was 28. So in the course of the South India travel, he was little more than 24, and he left when he was 48, and Gopal was there for 22 years. So he's towards the end of Mahaprabhu's life. He sent a wooden platform. There's some proper name for it. I forget. I just know it as a gadi. Gadi. You know what that is? With South Indian Brahmins, when they do puja, they sit on a hardwood, dark hardwood board that's like has little feet about that tall that goes the whole length, one side, the other side. So a seat that Mahaprabhu personally used, he sent to Vrindavan, along with one of his garments, an upper garment, Uttriya garment, for Gopal. And he kept them for his life. And with it was a little note: do not become dependent upon security or adopt a permanent residence. Please spend most of your time assisting, Rupa and Sanatan in compiling transcendental literature, and thoroughly study this literature as well. Good instruction. So that's what he did. And sometime not too much after that, Mahaprabhu left this world. And when he left this world, young Gopal was devastated. In a dream, Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a dream and said, if you're feeling great distress due to my separation, then make a trip to Nepal, because in Nepal, the Gandaki River. So he went, long description. He was thinking, I should be nice to worship Shilas. There's details. I'll do this quickly. He had a bucket, and he put 12 Shilas in the bucket, and he started walking away feeling like, I'm not qualified to worship Shalagram. So he put them back in the river. They jumped back in his bucket. The story goes like that. And it happened twice, and so he understood, okay, they want me to worship them. And he came back with 12 Shilas. And he did the worship, because that was his training from childhood. One fine day, a wealthy merchant came to Vrindavan, and he was making gifts to each of the Goswamis for their deities. Fine silk cloth, nice ornaments, decorations for their deity. And he went to visit Gopal, but he just had Shilas. He didn't have a deity with a form to use all those nice gifts. And he liked to give that to his deity. So that evening when he took rest, he was just meditating and praying, what should I do? These nice gifts. And he took rest. He had a basket and put his Shilas in the basket. In the morning he got up before the sun came up. He went to the Jamuna, which wasn't far away. And he took his morning bath, and he came back prepared to begin his puja. And when he began his puja, he counted 11 Shilas. Looking around, where's the other Shila? Where's the other Shila? And he saw the other Shila manifested in a self-manifesting deity form from his Damodar Shila. So he was ecstatic. And he informed Rupa and Sanatan. They came immediately, and they gave the deity a name, Radha Raman. So this all happened 8 days after Mahaprabhu's departure, and 1 day after Nrsimha Chaturdasi, and a particular Purnima. So from that day, he, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, began worshipping Radha Raman, and this Radha Raman deity is very photogenic. There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures of Radha Raman. Here's one of them. So one day when he was doing his puja, Gopal Bhatta Goswami saw a young man waiting for him to finish his puja. So he invited him in when he was done and said, who are you? Why have you come? He said, my name is Gopinath. I've come here to serve you. He said, well, could you explain? He said, yes. You may not remember. You may remember. You may not remember. When you were going to Nepal, on the way up the mountain, you stopped at one cottage. It was my father, and my father and you had some conversation on topics about Krishna, late into the night. And in the morning, when it was time to leave, my father made a request. Could you give a benediction so that I may have a son? And if I do have a son, then I would like him to be your servant. That's me. My name is Gopinath. I've come to serve you. So Gopal Bhatta just took it as the divine plan of the Lord. Gopinath became a pujari assisting him in Radha Raman's worship. It turns out that Gopinath had a younger brother. The younger brother's name was Damodar, I think. Yeah, Damodar. Damodar became married. Gopinath didn't. This tells you where they were, near Haridwar. His younger brother became married, and then the children that came from that marriage are now the Goswamis of the Radha Raman temple. Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Gopinath and his brother Damodar. Damodar and his descendants became the Goswamis of the Radha Raman temple. Here's some close-up photos of the deity. Notice the refined, his lips. This is a self-manifesting deity. Look closely, you can even see his little fingers, and you can even see his fingernails. Very refined features. Very, very sublime. In the beginning, he didn't have anything, so he placed the deity in a tree. It is said that during this period of time, the early days of the Goswamis in Vrindavan, there was always risk of military invasions. And so what he did was he took the deity in a boat in the Jamuna and kept the deity in a boat at night in Jamuna, in the middle of the lake, protected by guards with poison-tipped arrows and bows. Apparently it was a risky time. In the course of time, some Western European scientists doubted self-manifesting deity. What's that? So with supervision of the pujaris, they allowed them to inspect the deity to see if the deity was carved or if the deity was a self-manifesting deity. And they found no evidence of carving self-manifesting deity. And I've not seen, but they say the backside of the deity is the Shila from which the deity appeared, the bulging in his back. In Bhakti Ratnakar is a book written about the followers of Lord Caitanya after his departure, because there were previous literature of what happened during his time. So Bhakti Ratnakar is what happened after his time. And in that Bhakti Ratnakar, it says, whatever desires manifest in the heart of Gopal Bhatta, Radha Raman would fulfill. So one of those desires was Radha Raman is a Shalagram Shila. So when Shalagram Shilas are not worshipped side by side with the Radharani. So what he did is he had a Radharani manifested in the form of a peacock feather. And on the peacock feather, Radha's name was written. So when you look closely at the deity of Radha Raman, you'll see another, what do you call that? Hangs above the deity. Canopy. And what's underneath that canopy is a peacock feather with Radharani's name written on the peacock feather, representing Radha. And the deity is Radha Raman. But present in her rupa, nama rupa form. So not the name of Krishna, but the name of Radha. Inscribed in Sanskrit on a feather, panaced beneath a cloth or a crown. Here's another Radharani. It's a mystical place. When you go to Vrindavan, make sure you go to Radha Raman temple. Here's a statement about his worship. While Gopal Bhatta Goswami was engaged with absorption in worshipping his Shalagram Shilas, his dear friend Bhugarbha Goswami was a contemporary of Mahaprabhu. He would sometimes sit by his side and observe the amazing devotion with which the Shilas were worshipped. So he had this 11 Shilas plus now Radha Raman, and he would worship them every day personally. During Prabhupada's time, one of those Goswamis in the descendancy of Gopal Bhatta Goswami or Damodar Das was Vishvambar Goswami. Vishvambar Goswami was a very dear friend to Srila Prabhupada and of Srila Prabhupada. He helped him get secured in the rooms that he stayed in for some time at Radha Damodar temple. Vishvambar Goswami organized and officiated the installation of Krishna Balaram because he was known throughout the whole of Vrindavan as the best, most authoritative person with deity worship. So Prabhupada requested him, he agreed. He did the installation of Krishna Balaram. Prabhupada said if we had any questions about deity worship, we can go and ask him. He was just like had that kind of trust in his character. And the next generation, Padmanabha Goswami was his elder son. Padmanabha Goswami, similar mood. He used to travel around America and did presentations on showing the different ways the deities were dressed, and almost every single day of the year they have a special festival, a special this and a special that. It's really an amazing place, the Radha Raman temple and the worship of Radha Raman. Becoming subservient to the love of Sri Gopal Bhatta, Sri Radha Raman would sometimes accept the form of Gaurasundara because Gopal Bhatta started developing a transcendental emotion, saying, here I am worshiping Krishna, but I'm not worshiping Mahaprabhu. This isn't right. So from time to time, Radha Raman would manifest as the form of Mahaprabhu, because whatever was in his desire, Radha Raman would fulfill. It was a very amazing transcendental personality. Gopal Bhatta had the stature of a king, the presence of the best of brahmanas, and his eyes and smile radiated compassion. So much of his time was in fact at the Radha Raman temple, but he also stayed elsewhere. He spent some time at Radha Kund. This is the temple inside Radha Kund, and we're going to see the altar inside the temple. So he spent some time, as did many of the Goswamis, at Radha Raman temple, at Radha Kund. Here in this altar, Revati Balaram, the tall Revati Balaram on the right, and on the left is Radha Raman. This is Srinivasacharya. He became the Diksha Guru, a very significant. As Srinivasacharya was sent throughout India with two others, Srinivasacharya would regularly stay in communication with him to take guidance and direction, not details, but direction. They had a very, very close, loving relationship. These are the titles of the books that he did take credit for writing. Rituals, illuminations on the essence of rituals, Satkriya Sara Dipika. Here's for example. For example, in Phoenix, there was an initiation ceremony, and it took almost 2 hours. I asked the Pujari, "What are you doing?" He said, "Just following Satkriya Sara Dipika." It's, details and details. So very elaborate Gaudiya Vaishnava details. He edited this Hari Bhakti Vilas. He wrote a foreword for the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. He actually compiled the whole thing. He wrote a commentary on Krishna Karnamrita. Some of you have been around for a while, you know what that is. Bilvamangala Thakur wrote a book. Bilvamangala Thakur lived in Vrindavan for a long, long, long time. It says, several hundred years. Krishna Karnamrita was his writing, and Gopal Bhatta wrote a commentary on it. And in all of these literatures that Hari Bhakti Vilas and the Sandarbhas, he just requested that his name not be mentioned. He did the same thing with Krishnadas Kaviraj in his composition of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The book is a book compiling the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. The author is pictured here. He lived at Radhakund. And the author felt, I'm not qualified. I'm being asked by some of the Vaishnavas to do this, but I need the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas. So he went to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who said, yes, I give you my blessings under one condition. Don't mention my name. So he followed that request. That was his mood. The last slide is just down a little walkway is his samadhi. This is his samadhi on his appearance day, which is today. But this isn't today's photo. It's an older photo. But his place of samadhi is in Vrindavan. So those of you that are a little newer to our devotional practice in ISKCON, you now have met, at least a little bit, one of the important personalities in our disciplic line, the son of the chief priest of Sri Rangam. Now, it turns out not only his uncle gave him Diksha, but his uncle also moved to Vrindavan. Prabodhananda Saraswati, his uncle, moved to Vrindavan. He loved Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was also a writer. He wrote fabulous poetic writings glorifying Vrindavan. Vrindavan Mahimamrita is one of his books. It's just like beautiful glorifications of Vrindavan. And another book glorifying Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Chandramrita. So he from a very, very elevated family, renowned from childhood, highly learned, highly skilled, highly devoted, highly realized, very submissive to whatever it was that Lord Chaitanya told him. It became his life and soul. And so he wrote books like he was asked to do. But he kept this anonymity going. Uh-oh. I'm getting a notice saying my battery is about to poop out. Doesn't show on the screen. Yeah, it's on this one. Okay. So I'm going to shut this down. And I've been going since 5 o'clock. The 2-hour class for the Chinese devotees. Any thoughts you'd like to share? Yes? A question? Okay.
Maharaj, so you mentioned that Gopinath and Damodar Goswami, they're they're doing the worship there, the lineage.
They were assisting him. They didn't say they were doing the worship. They were
Assisting.
assisting Gopal Bhatta.
So they have a different. They are under Gaudiya Sampradaya, or
Yes, they became his disciple.
okay.
They became his disciple.
So now whoever is worshipping in Radha Raman temple, they're all under our Sampradaya, Maharaj.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're disciples of their their Gaudiya line. Yes, yes.
Yeah, we went there um, to that temple. We were fortunate to visit, but I see the way they put tilak is little different.
Well,
Um,
that I thank you for bringing that up. I mean, Shamakund, another devotee, noticed that the person Vishwambhara Goswami, Padmanabha Goswami, the current eldest son of Padmanabha Goswami, is a bit of a maverick. You know what maverick means? He's kind of went over there. Now I saw that photo of the next in line by seminal birth, and they were a little nervous, but he's the eldest son, etc. So he does things that are a little different, and writes things, and etc. He's a bit of a maverick. When I went, that Pujari, very clear, very bold, just standard tilak, no other thing going on. And, it's Kali Yuga. Even the chief Goswami is heading that way instead of middle of the road. It's just his personality, what to do. So I saw several that had this standard tilak. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So, Guru Maharaj, the Srirang, there is a temple of Srirangji in Vrindavan. Is there any relation?
I don't
that?
know. It's a Ranganath temple, but I don't know if there's anything to do with the relation is the deity, but is there anything to do with, the pujaris that are operating that temple? I don't know. It's not too difficult to find out. Find out from somebody that resides in Vrindavan, they'll tell you. Do you know anybody that resides in Vrindavan?
Yeah, I mean, there are.
You know some people that reside in Vrindavan. Ask them. I don't know.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
So, other thing, Guru Maharaj, about the Shilas. I think probably I missed somewhere. What happened to the 11 Shilas?
They're still there.
So,
All 12. There's one of them is Radha Raman. Behind you, over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto. When child in mother home, that time means soul were crying about God, praying all. So I don't want come again in this womb. This is very stool and urine, everything. So baby were crying in the mother womb. Then all souls will cry like that, Maharaj. Only specific souls only cry.
Only it. If I think I've understood your question, and I'll answer what I think your question is. It's rare. Some souls pray like that.
Oh,
It's rare, but some souls pray like that. So not all souls pray like that.
Oh, yes. Only human being only.
It's
beings.
rare. I don't know what, it doesn't give a percentage, but it's rare. But it's some souls understand their predicament and they make a pledge.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I have a question here. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2 or 3, I don't remember exactly. When Lord Krishna takes his expansion to any of the avatars, let's say uh, uh, Lord Krishna always stays in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, but Vasudeva takes the form of in the appearance of any other form. So when it comes to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so did Lord Krishna came as a Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Vasudeva came as a person?
Krishna comes once in the day of Brahma. The original Swayam Bhagavan Krishna from spiritual realm comes, and then that's in Dwapara Yuga, and the Kali Yuga immediately after that, Mahaprabhu comes.
Okay.
It's Krishna from, but I'll give you a little detail. Have you seen, look closely, next time you have your Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, look closely at the cover, and what you see in that cover is there's down in the bottom side, there's the Mahatattva, there's the material creation, Mahavishnu and everything.
Yes.
And then there's this big blue, that's the spiritual sky.
Yeah.
And then within the spiritual sky, there's Vaikuntha planets, they're luminous spheres.
Yeah.
And then to up in the center is Goloka. Look closely at Goloka, look closely at the painting, and you'll see Lord Chaitanya dancing with his associates. Because there are 4 parts or quadrants in Goloka: Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, and Svetadweep. And Svetadweep is that place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eternally resides. So when Krishna descends once in a day of Brahma, Mahaprabhu descends from Goloka.
Thank you. For all other appearances, like Vasudeva comes, or like
Well, you said that before. I didn't edit anything, but the expansions of Vasudeva, Sankarsha, and Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and their expansions. The expansions, they actually come from the Vaikuntha realm, generally speaking.
Okay.
The Shringa, Varaha, etc. They come from Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
So they're 4-armed forms, generally 4-armed forms, as Narayan is 4-armed form, and they descend, but distinct. One distinction is Ayodhya. And there, Ayodhya is in the Vaikuntha realm, the upper portion of this detail, upper portion of the Haridham. And there, the eternal form of Lord Ramachandra is 2-armed.
yes.
And he descends with his brothers from there. So it's not exactly what you just said twice. They're Vasudeva forms, expansions of expansions, etc. from Haridham, generally speaking. Is that all right?
Yes, Prabhu.
You have something further? Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. 2 questions, Maharaj. One is, could you tell more about who is Gunamanjari? And second one is,
I don't know any detail about who she is, other than she's an intimate associate of Srimati Radharani. But any details about her, I don't know.
And you also mentioned that Gopal Bhatta Goswami took initiation from Prabodhananda Saraswati.
Yes, Diksha, mantra Diksha.
Was Prabodhananda Saraswati a Gaudiya Vaishnava, or
Is he what?
Was he following Gaudiya Vaishnavism or Sri Sampradaya?
She, that's from the Diksha from which he received. So it's quite okay. Don't get confused or
No, no,
disturbed. The
the-
answer is he got the Diksha mantras from Prabodhananda Saraswati, which are in the Sri Vaishnava line. But the teaching is the strength of both of them.
the Sri Sampradaya devotees also follow Srimad Bhagavat.
Well, Venkata Bhatta and Prabodhananda Saraswati certainly did.
And
Yeah, the Venkata Bhatta also wanted to come. When his brother or Gopal's uncle went to Vrindavan, he wanted to go too. But he had his responsibility, so he was very faithful to his responsibility.
their version of Srimad Bhagavatam is
So
same.
you
as the-
say there, don't get stuck.
Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam is Srimad Bhagavatam. And prior to Lord Chaitanya, there was one principal acharya who made commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. And he was not a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He was a Vaishnava, but not a Gaudiya Vaishnava. Sridhar Swami, from another disciplic line, which is just fine. And Mahaprabhu accepted. So don't get stuck. Before Mahaprabhu's pastimes were completed, there was a disciple of Advaita Acharya who wrote the first Gaudiya commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. His name was Srinath Chakravarti. And then following him others, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, etc. But the Bhagavatam is the Bhagavatam, and the commentary is the commentary. And so the primary commentary Mahaprabhu accepted was Sridhar Swami from a different sampradaya.
Thank you.
It's just understanding what it means. And they understood what it means. Prabodhananda Saraswati understood what it means from the 4 months that he spent with Lord Chaitanya. This means this and that means that, and he's fine with it. Hearing directly from the mouth of Mahaprabhu. He didn't write a commentary, but he knew the teachings. And that's what he gave to Gopal, who wrote the books. Anything else up front here? Sounds like the kids are having a good time over there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I'm very new to ISKCON disciplines. It's been just like 2 visits. I just started learning more about ISKCON and Hare Krishna.
Ah,
But like, if you talk about like, do you know Krishna? Yes, from my childhood age.
that's okay.
Yeah, so we know how Krishna.
ABC at least.
Yes. So, I may get more details on like other Prabhus, but I'm very fortunate. At least I'm able to hear you and see you in front of me. So I have just 2 questions. If you would like to
I'll try.
share, yeah.
I'll try.
So what triggered you to devote yourself? And at what age you decided? So I should be devoting myself to Krishna. I don't know. the
That's a nice
discipline.
question. It's a very natural question. Well, to keep it simple, it was gradual. In one sense, it wasn't impulsive. I mean, from my parents' perspective, probably it was impulsive because they didn't know all of what I was doing. But from my perspective, I was cautious. but there's some details and details, but at a certain, so is the age was I was in college, my junior and senior year in college. So around that time I was, whatever it was, 20 and 21. And I, started a quest. There's many factors. I'll do a little bit. One of the factors was the United States was at war with Vietnam when I was that period of time. And my parents told me, you're getting these draft notices at home. You know what that means? Conscription. You report to the army, you're drafted to get a uniform and go off to Vietnam. Off you go. And I thought, the war is stupid. It takes somebody out of medical school to go fight that stupid war. That's double stupid. It's just not even gonna. So they said, you got to do something. You got to do something. You got to do something. And so I started asking around, what should I do? And they advice was given to me. This is kind of like a jugular moment for me. The advice was given to me, go to the Quakers. It's a certain Christian group. They're like pacifist type of people. And they'll help you fill out a conscientious objector form. You've heard of that before? No. Conscientious. It's my convictions are that I can't do this.
Okay.
Conscientious objector. So the first question on the form says, state the nature of your convictions, your beliefs, such that you cannot take part in the armed forces of the United States of America. Piece of cake, right? I'm a Dean's List student. I know how to get A's in exams, and you just say the right stuff. But the pen wouldn't move. The pen wouldn't move because I didn't know what my convictions were. I could say the right things and get the A in the exam. But because I didn't know what my convictions were, I was in a state of shock. Because, what am I? Because that question led to 100 other questions that I also didn't have answers to. And I was too busy being successful to be knowing who I am and what's important to me. And I said, I'm doing a timeout. I want answers. And not somebody else tells me what the answers are. I want my answers. I was like dug in. And that started a revival of something that was there in youth, but it just went away because I got too busy being successful and people couldn't give me answers. I asked. No one gave me answers because they didn't know either. I mean, I can't blame them. They didn't know. So that's what started the asking seriously again. And it got to be really serious. Anyway, there are three things. There's a higher reality. I don't know what it is, and I want to know what it is. That was it. And then I started looking around at, options. And a lot of dead ends, a lot of people that were cheaters, and a lot of people that, they also didn't know, and so forth and so on. And then some time passed, and then I met devotees. Prabhupada came to our campus, and things started, because I was asking, then things were coming my way. Krishna was giving me the opportunity to say yes or no to things that I didn't even know existed before, because I was asking. I knew that I didn't know. That was a big one. Some people don't know, and they don't know that they don't know. I wanted to know. So things and things and things and things. That's how it started. That was my age. So I just put my career thing on hold. I'll go back to it sometime, but right now I don't want to just keep going I was very clear. I don't want to be the end of my life and I still don't know. I'm not going to do that. And I'm okay to be, to gradually understand, but I'm not going to just be in la la land my whole life and still don't know. I'm not going to do that.
It's a very bold move. Like not everyone will have that guts to take that call.
Well, it's not God. It's just like,
It's inner
yeah.
inner thought.
I don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't just have something banging on my head, and I don't know. I don't like it, and I don't. I just don't do anything about it. Just keep going on being successful. I'm not going to. I don't. It's just that's dumb. I can't do that. I mean, so at a certain stage, things happen. Things happen. I jumped in the pool. Said, okay, I don't want to just like look at it from the outside. I want to jump in the pool. So I moved into an ashram, and 2 years later, little light went on, said, okay, now you know what it's like. Now what do you want to do? I didn't have anybody over my shoulder whispering things, don't do this or do that. Just like the same voice from the inside saying, okay, now what do you want to do? Like I could have taken all of that which I had received and gone back and rejoined medical school and become, whatever that it leads to. Then I decided, look, not language, but I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I'm not unhappy doing any part of what I'm doing. And there's lots of people over there that are doctors. I can serve Krishna as a doctor, but there are lots of doctors, not too many people doing this. And I'm very happy. So I'm sure in the course of time, I'll meet people becoming doctors and health and become Krishna conscious doctors. So it just stayed on. But it wasn't like I had some aversion. Just there was a satisfaction that was being met. Knowing who I am and living who I am. Not just in a transcendental sense of who I am, not just in the psychophysical sense of who I am.
Thank you. I think that is what I wanted. to ask.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I forgot to bring Mahaprasadam. I brought some with me from Chicago, and I didn't bring it from the refrigerator. So I'd like to give Mahaprasadam at the end of a program, and I'm empty-handed. Where? Okay, so we'll come back tomorrow and see you tomorrow. Give some Mahaprasadam tomorrow. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.